allemaal. Voor degenen die graag op hun mobiel willen kijken, hieronder hebben we de wifi-code. Onze agenda van vandaag is, we beginnen met de presentatie van Paul Smeddes, OutSystems MVP bij Solution werkzaam. Hij staat hier achter, straks zien we veel beter. Daarna sluiten we direct aan met een presentatie van Jeroen Meesma van Bokko. Deze is de kleine heer. Daarna hebben we een korte pauze. Even bijtekenen, biertje, colaatje, iets anders fris. En daarna gaan we door met een presentatie van het testen automatiseren. En daarna, voor degenen die nog niet naar huis willen, kun je gewoon blijven hangen totdat je eruit gestopt wordt. Ik heb een hoop nieuwe gezichten gezien, dus ik ga heel kort even vertellen waar we nu zijn. We zijn nu bij LINKIT. LINKIT bestaat dit jaar 20 jaar. En dat hebben we van het weekend gevierd met een klein feestje. Iedereen in het wit. Was gezellig, moet ik zeggen. En laat.
No, we are
In English? Really? How many English people do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Nobody was complaining? Cool. Yeah, the Dutch guy was complaining, of course. This is our office. Everybody that's here found it, so I don't need to show this one.
Are you gonna meet?
The model of LINKIT is not only OutSystems. We have about 1,000 people working for us at clients. We have freelancers, we have partners, and we have employees. And altogether 1,000 people working at clients through LINKIT. Our values are collaboration, knowledge, trust, reliability, and drive. Common values. And our expertise and technologies are not only OutSystems, it's more with Java, .NET, Azure, AWS, Hadoop, also Kubernetes, Node.js, support. So a lot of different things, but OutSystems is one of our main technologies that we try to be good at. We also have this label. I'm not sure if anybody knows this label. It's an open platform where everybody can write articles, present at meetups, come to our summits and share knowledge. If you go to ITnext.io, you will see a lot of articles also about OutSystems. We try to get everybody that writes about OutSystems to publish also on ITnext.io. So in that case, everybody's looking for information about OutSystems beyond the OutSystems website. You can look there and see a lot of more information. So this is our agenda, and I would like to invite Paul to take over from me. We'll just find his presentation. If there are any questions at the end of the day, you know where to find me, I hope. I'm always open to answer any question. So, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. I will give you a small introduction into how to build high-quality applications in OutSystems. Let me first introduce what I'm going to cover here. You can, with OutSystems, develop applications at a very high speed, but just making it work will, at the end of the day, be not enough. We also need to be able to build an application that is built for endurance and maintainability, so that it will last for the life of the application, and that we will not be confronted with technical debt at the end of our day. In this presentation, I will describe the methods and tools that we can use to build a robust and performant and maintainable application. I would like to point out that this is not a tutorial or a masterclass on quality assurance and testing. It's just an overview of what is inside OutSystems and what we can use together with OutSystems to make good quality products. By the way, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and ask them. So the topics I'm going to cover are that the documenting for maintainability, code quality, testing, and last but not least, architecture validation. Documenting for maintainability, what does that mean? That you need to establish a concise documentation standard, meaning that you must apply documentation standards, but not so many that you are writing books. You still have working software over extensive documentation as in the OutSystems manifest. To verify that you have proper documentation, you can use the Forge component OutDoc, which you can find on the Forge. I've given a small example of what you can set in your documentation standards. That is, you must define for your application a meaningful tool and description, so that when you are in Service Studio, you can easily recognize your components and see what the purpose of that is. Also, you should set mandatory descriptions for many components, like the modules, elements, entities, etc. In this case, that will mean that when somebody is new to the component, he will easily find his way and can discover what the meaning of these things are. If you are finding or defining entities, you should at least define one entity diagram to explain the data model that you are implementing. If you have a more complex data model, you should define that in more specialized topic describing entity diagrams. And last but not least, if you have some complex logics in your server actions or your screen actions, you should add comments to explain what is happening there, because we all hate it to waste our time in discovering what is going on in this complex logic. And most of the times we are confronted with what is happening here. Well, I don't understand it. Let's build it from scratch again, because now then I understand it again. Last but not least, on code quality, OutSystems has a lot of platform best practices, both for coding and for performance. Use those and apply them to your code. Make sure that you put them in your definition of done if you are working in an agile project, so that you constantly check this. It's of no use to do at the end of the project a code review on all the software that has been built, because then you will not be able to rectify the mistakes that has been made. Also, you will discover anti-patterns that are not supposed to be implemented. Document them as an example in your style guide application that you are using, so that people see what is not the way to implement something and what is the best way to implement it. Next topic is testing. I think with this much of a crowd here, I don't have to explain why it is important, but the main topic is we all make mistakes. Some mistakes are unimportant or they are dangerous, and we should be able to uncover these mistakes. And well, for that we need to do testing. In OutSystems, what kind of test can we do? Well, I think we can do everything that is described in our testing manuals, like UI test, user acceptance test, etc. I will not read the whole sheet, you can read it for yourself. Next is that there are quite a lot of tools available in the market that can be used in conjunction with OutSystems. So some examples are Selenium, Tosca, Ranorex and LeapWork, for test automation. This is a very important topic because when you are doing rapid application development, you also have to be able to do rapid testing and a lot of regression testing. Therefore, also we have the robot framework to be able to do acceptance testing and acceptance test-driven development. And we have the Jenkins tool that you can use to orchestrate your testing. In addition to these tools, there are some components in the Forge that you can use to do your testing. These are the test automator, which is a kind of tool that you can use in conjunction with the other tools in the Forge to automate your testing. You have the test framework, which can be used to do special testing. You have the behavior-driven development framework, where you can define your testing using the Gherkin language. And last but not least, you have the unit testing framework, which can be used to define the unit test on OutSystems. Then we already are coming near the end of this presentation. That is that when you are building your application, you need to constantly validate your application architecture. When you start, you define your application using the 4-layer canvas. In the 4-layer canvas, there are some rules that you should not violate. The first one is that you should not have upward references. The reason for that is that you will cause unnecessary inclusion of other components in your dependency stack. The second one is that there should be no cycles. What is the impact of that? If you have cycle preferences, you will be in a never-ending story of republishing and having outdated references. And the only way to get the proper solution published is by creating a solution of your application and publishing that one, but that is not an ideal situation. And another important one is that there should be no side references on the orchestration and the user interface layer. The reason for that is that if you are using a side references, that the impact will be that all components referenced by the other UI component will be part of your package that is deployed, and any changes to lower level components that are included in that UI layer component will also impact your application while it is not making use of that. To wrap it up, so quality assurance, we think that it's essential to deliver robust and maintainable applications. You can establish that using documentation standards, code reviews, testing and validating and refactoring your applications. On this topic I have created a more elaborate story which gives more detailed examples of what I have told you here, and you can read the story on the Medium and today also on the IT Next platform. That was it. If there are no questions,
I have one actually. Maybe I'm one. You were before talking about anti-partners and all that stuff, and I was wondering, in your experience, what is the anti-parent that you find the most in OutSystems applications out there?
So the question is, what is the anti-pattern that I find the most in OutSystems? Well, to be blunt, I don't recollect one right at this moment. What I most find as an anti-pattern is the misuse of extensions and customizations in places where you could do it with OutSystems itself. So, for example, using advanced SQL while you easily could use an aggregate, or the use of JavaScript while there is a Silk UI component readily available to do so. Another one is to create far too big actions, so that you have a lot of complex code which are in one bulky component, instead of that you split it in smaller components. Actions, yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
So, what you say is all nice, and this shouldn't.
And the mic. So you're talking about you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that and you shouldn't do the other stuff that isn't good and all the anti-patterns.
Yeah. And
how do you prevent people from doing that?
well, what I said is that you should make code review part of your definition of done, and that you should enforce that anything that is delivered in the team has been at least been reviewed by one of the other peers in the team. And that I think that is one of the most important things, especially in junior teams, because otherwise you will discover a lot of not adhering to those standards, and then you have a lot of rework at your hand.
So when you say junior teams, then one junior should check the code of the other junior, or how do you see it in front of you? Or?
Well, what I mean with junior teams is that if there is a team with a lot of people that are just starting with development, that there should be a spirit of supporting each other and reviewing each other's code, and preferably be that a junior should review another junior's work, but also then be supported by a senior. If you like OutSystems states, if you are starting a project, you should at least have one experienced person in the team to be able to deliver the right quality.
Yeah, it sounds good, but I think in practice it always turns out the other way. But
Yes. Of course, this is we are not speaking about an ideal situation. We know that when you are in a project, a lot of times the project management will try to force you in not to follow these standards, but we should be aware that you will pay the price for that in a later stage. One more question, Tiago?
I think I've been.
You're allowed no,
So, continuing on a question from the previous participant, what would you consider to be a good setup for a team of development? Because it has been addressed that if the team is only consisted of junior developers and junior are reviewing each other's code, that doesn't seem to be a good result. What is your setup of a team to provide at the end good quality code? Should it include only one senior? Should it include how many junior developers a senior can
Well, obviously that depends on the senior. But
so the senior that is a junior, but then it's okay.
well, if you have a team, let's say of 3 or 4 people, then one senior could just manage that if he is also good in managing those people. I mean, it's not only being a senior that is required, it is also depending on your coaching and management skills.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? More questions? One more? What's Oleg's question? Oh, there as well.
I have a question. So the documentation standards, I saw you mention OutDoc, and I know that at my previous employer, we looked at OutDoc and we didn't find it to be suitable enough to present to a client. Have you actually been able to provide what was generated in OutDoc to your clients as suitable documentation accepted by them?
Well, I don't think it is documentation that should be delivered as, let's say, system documentation that you deliver to a client. It should be part of your team documentation because it's also a live thing. And the part of OutDoc is that it is based on using some standard tools from OutSystems, and you can always enhance the tool.
But why do you need the documentation as a team when as a team you can also look in Service Studio and like see what's going on live?
Well, because the OutDoc gives you more an overview of the whole picture, and it's like that you also use Discovery to discover if you're violating your architecture or not. You could do that also by looking in the OutSystems code, but it will speed up if you do it using that tool, and the same covers the documentation.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you, Paul Smith. I did see a couple of links in your presentation. After the meetup, we will...
You had one more question.
One more question? Oh, let's continue.
Yeah, I did.
After the presentation, we will put those presentations on the meetup page, so everybody can download them afterwards. And if everything goes well tonight, we might also have a video of the meetup. But that depends on the quality afterwards. We don't know. It's the first time, so it's a tryout. If it works out, we do have video content afterwards also. Last question.
One more question, and I'll go to the next speaker. I saw that you had like a small summary of the BDD test framework and the unit testing framework. Do you use both of them, or do you have any consideration when to use either the BDD or the unit testing framework? Because I've been looking into both of them, and well, I actually went for the unit testing. I don't really see for myself when to really use the BDD over the unit testing. I was curious how you look at it.
Well, I also have done the same thing as you. I've looked in both of them, the unit test and the BDD. I find that the BDD as it is provided at the moment is rather small. You must do a lot of programming to be able to do the full testing with the BDD framework. You also have to master the Gherkin language, which is not an easy thing to do. It's quite an effort to translate your user story and acceptance criteria in Gherkin-like specifications. So I think it can be a powerful tool, but if you are just starting with that, I would go on the safe side and use unit testing framework for that type of testing.
If you would be experienced with it, it actually saves you time, or
Well,
in my opinion, looking at it, I think still unit testing would save more time actually. But
BDD has as an advantage that the requirement is stated more clearly.
okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, welcome.
Great, thank you, Paul Smets. If there are any more questions, you can just find him in the break or after the meetup. The next talk will be from Jeroen. He's from Honcode. Welcome. And he will talk about how to do quality assurance, I think.
Okay, got my presentation? Yes, you do. Good evening. Okay. So, not the last question, but the one before was the ideal question, because there are other tools that help you do code reviewing. And we at Boncode developed one together in close cooperation with LINKIT, especially Remco Dekkinga. And our talk is about that. So let's dive into it. So let's have a look. So there are basically 3 topics. So purpose practices, which essentially is going to be a demo of the tooling, and a couple of pitfalls. And we might have, if there's time, we can do questions, and you may interrupt me as well as I go along. Now, a bit about our background. We're old school guys, conventional languages. We've developed tooling to assess, for instance, Java code, C#, C++, that kind of stuff. And what you wind up with is tooling that basically annotates the code and says what's the matter. So in this case, there's a piece of Java code I wrote myself. I wrote my own XML parser maybe 15 years ago or something. And well, it's obviously overly complex. Very hard for yourself later on to modify it, or for your colleagues. And then there's other stuff, like for instance here, an exception is ignored, which means that there's basically something wrong with your error handling. Now this can all be measured. Now, a couple of months ago, our sales went to a customer and came back and says, well, can we measure this? So I thought, well, this is a low-code platform, OutSystems. I never heard of it. But in most cases, there's XML underneath it. So yeah, let's give it a go. So we went to, we met Remco here, got some sample code, tried to measure it, and see if any of the metrics made any sense. And after a while, they did. Anyways, purpose. Yeah, basically this says it. It's all about maintainability. So you might have heard of the ISO 25010 standard, which is not really a standard, but a bunch of categories basically in which you can define quality of any product basically, but this is meant for software. But if your maintainability, which can be measured, and I'll show it, if your maintainability is okay, then in an agile environment you'll be able to adapt your code to anything that comes along. So any of the other categories can be addressed that way. So that's the basic game we're playing here. So, and if we look at maintainability, then these are basically the things that we try to look at. So dry means don't repeat yourself. Try to define a piece of functionality once and only once. Keep it simple. So don't over-engineer stuff, but stick with the simplest solution for any given problem you're tackling at a certain moment. And software should be modular. And it can also be measured. So you want to have your functionality in units that do or are responsible for basically one thing, and one thing only. Now, does this also apply to OutSystems stuff? And is there anyone who disagrees or agrees on that? No one disagrees? You do? Oh. Okay, go away there. because it applies to all engineering, basically. Even a space shuttle, well, especially the space shuttle, because the space shuttle, the whole construction, violates all these three concepts. And I'm not going into that, it's homework, because we have limited time today, especially with the demo. But if you consider this, we can do that with over a beer later on. It's fun to look at it. Practices, so let's have a look at the demo. Yeah, basically, a bit.
I'll just sit down and click some buttons. It's awesome.
Wonderful. So we're looking at a piece of LINKIT software here, which has one downside. It's quite good software, actually, because we like the bad stuff, basically. So we have, yeah, okay. Well, there we go. So it took us a while. So when we got our first customer, then we got real production. Well, this is real production code, obviously, but we got the real bad production code. I hope I'm not offending anybody here. So, which was very good in terms of feedback for the analysis we developed. So, but let's have a look here. Oh, it's a bit. That might be the resolution. Okay, well, no problem. So first, let's have a look at this dashboard. So this is 3 applications at once in one dashboard. We have quality metrics over here. These apply to dry KISS modular, basically. Well, maybe not dry, but at least keep it simple. So we have a couple of things like function cyclometric complexity that applies to preparations and actions. And it's more like, it's like the Java code I showed you. So how many if, then, else, for loops are in there somewhere, and how deeply are they nested? Function parameter rating, so how many parameters have you going into a function? That's also a very good one to see if a function does one thing on one abstraction level. Yeah, there it is again. Action size rating, if it's too big, do you still know what it's doing? There's all. Yeah.
It's a new gadget.
I'm not very good with gadgets. The red button. Oh, there we go. I'd like to make a big gesture. Okay, anyway. So there's these all wind up in weighted quality rating, which is meant to to see if any team, knew more or less what they were doing, making maintainable code, or maybe they ran into problems because of deadlines or whatever. But then at least you know, and you can compare different applications using these quality metrics and the aggregated rating. Then there are technical debt metrics. Basically, these are these are configurable. The thresholds are also configurable. So this is meant if you, for instance, have a technical sprint, or if you try to modify your code or refactor it, then these are the things that you can configure so that as a team, you know what you're looking at and what you're aiming for. Now, then the last one are volume metrics. Over here, normally they're over here. And especially duplication is interesting. There might be some false positives in here, can go still. So you want to basically know how large your code base is and how it's growing if a team is developing it. Application objects are interesting because that's what you pay for. unless you have an unlimited license. But duplication is the most interesting one, basically. Now then, if you want to do the review, you can drill down. Maybe you can drill down a bit. Go there. And the green dots indicate if the rating is high. And if it becomes more wetter, then then there's something the matter. Media Control Center might have a few components that we can have a look at. This is a small one, it's very green. Oh yes, you can do. It's a special one because, and this is actually the XML you see, which is underneath.
Slowly, OutSystems in the background. If you have one screen, just loads OutSystems there. You see it opens at the same element.
Can you take the mic?
Yes, yes. I clicked on the check. Okay. Yes. In the bulk code tooling, I clicked on the menu sub-item and I opened the entity. By double-clicking on the link, it opened OutSystems on the menu sub-item. If you see that right in the top corner. So which helps you as an OutSystems developer to also because you don't know the real XML codes, but you do know how it looks visually. So this way you can click from a violation into OutSystems and see where it's going wrong.
Yeah, what would be nice, Remco, if you could drill down a bit. If you take especially Media Control Center. I can point it out. So there we are. Maybe core. Yeah, sure. Custom clients, there's something in the middle there. And it's Twitter. It's more orange. And this is a big one. So now we can see what's the matter with this one. It says entity size rating. And dependency volume, so it looks at a lot of other modules, which makes it vulnerable for change anywhere in the application. And there seems to be a large entity in here. Maybe if you can scroll down a little bit in this file. So actually this is marked as sample code, so it's not taken into the analysis itself. No, we can't find it right now. Well, we have other ways of finding it. Because what we can do is look at the entity metrics over there, look at attributes, and pick out the larger ones. There we have structure. So this one is marked. It's not very visible, but it's actually red. It's also part of a duplicate. You could try the deep link, maybe. Oh well, it doesn't have a key in this case. It might be the case that some of these deep links don't work because your code has been modified since it's been analyzed. And in this case, it goes to the E space. Is it able to identify it? Oh, it's been modified. Yeah, okay. Well, too bad. So those are just a couple of ways you can use this for reviewing and immediately go to your IDE to see what's going on and modify it. There's another one. If you can click on an E-space, on E-space level. Yeah, then we have our best practices report. So this one is for Evert. Go over it. Yeah. So what we see here is, and we're currently implementing. What was it called? OutSystems best practices as much as we can. So there's a couple here. Now in the large production systems we've seen so far, we've seen a lot of architectural violations, especially cyclic references, and they can easily be spotted. You can see and you can do something about it. But here's some other stuff, and this one we find regularly. We can show it in the code. So in an aggregate, you should limit the number of records. Well, it's basically the performance best practice. I don't know if you look at it, if it applies to all the things we find. But anyway, it shows up here, and this is according to the Trusted Advisor and best practices. Yeah, that's basically it. Are there any questions? Yes.
Is the tool available on the Forge?
Is the tool available?
On the Forge? This tool, so you have the Forge lock system, is this available?
How to get it?
Yeah.
Talk to ourselves.
For the low-code platforms.
Yeah.
For the low-code platforms, is OutSystems the first that you are supporting, or you are
first and only?
The first and only.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going to do any other low-code platforms.
Sorry?
We're not going to do any other low-code platforms.
Why?
Because we want to focus on OutSystems and get as good as we can get it. That's basically why. Focus.
Got one here.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
2 years ago, we had at my company in ECO, we had a project with the Software Improvement Group in this tooling. But they had quite some good dashboarding, but where the project failed was that that OutSystems wouldn't cooperate with extracting the XML from the OMLs. How did you fix that?
Be nice to them. I'm not sure. Treat them like normal people. No, I'm not sure. Now,
so if
SIG has the name to be arrogant, but anyway, if SIG has this, more or less, that's their model, and maybe a few extras.
But if we, for instance, we talk to your sales and we have this tooling, we can all call OutSystems to extract the XML from our OML files.
Yeah. So we cooperate with them, and so we have a nice cooperation. Cool. But because we want to get rid of this U-turn, as we call it, that has to go to Portugal and back.
Yeah.
So what we like to do is build this into the deployment pipeline and have it fully automated. So, and they're willing to provide us that, so that it gets decrypted automatically. But there's some hurdles to take there.
All right.
Yeah. I got some more slides, by the way, but anyway, these are the things you'd like to question me about, I think. Yeah?
There was one question here.
Is it possible to add custom rules or customize the existing ones?
Yes, customizing can be done, especially thresholds. For instance, there are customers that want to have no embedded code whatsoever, which is impossible. But maybe they want to restrict it to like 5% maximum. And others, maybe they don't mind, or for a certain project, which is very special. You want to say, well, 20% of embedded code is the maximum. So thresholds can be configured. And the tooling is a system of plugins itself. So it is possible for certain customers to build in certain specific metrics. And then you can always choose which metrics you want to show here on your dashboard, which is also configurable. So for instance, if you want to aim a certain improvement, or some things may be more important to some companies than other things. Yeah.
I saw that there was in the front one more question, right?
Yes.
He's already waiting.
On the volume metric, do they use lines of code?
Lines of code.
Talking about systems.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that doesn't mean anything really. That's the amount of lines in the XML.
Okay.
So this can be configured. It's still in there, so that's a remnant of, let's say, Java, whatever. But it's an indicator. You can use it still because it's relative. But if you have more embedded, it's embedded lines of code. Oh, okay. But wait a minute. The lines of code are already gone. So embedded lines of code, yeah, are lines of JavaScript, lines of SQL. Yeah. And they're very, very telling, actually. So we had sometimes whole JavaScript libraries get copied in, which is not a problem as such, but you can avoid it. But if there are modifications in there, which you can measure, I can't show you right now, but we also measure churn. So if we have two, well, okay, this is a slide obviously. So if we have multiple analyses, then here the changed files will show up, and you can see in the code what has been modified. So if there's a modification in the jQuery library, for instance, well, that's bad. Does it answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, I have a small question. Is it possible to accept certain violations so they don't turn up at the next scan? Otherwise you have every time 4,000 violations. And you have to do the whole process of analyzing it every time.
Yeah, well, at this moment it's not possible. So it's not a tool that you can use, for instance, as a backlog or whatever. It's quite static. So there's one result, and that's it. Although we have a number of things, for instance, duplication is not measured on certain elements. Some rules like that are configurable. But currently we're, this gives us already, I think, a very nice view of how applications are implemented. And currently we're gathering feedback and trying to improve with our customers.
So I think this is the final question before we can go to the next speaker. No, just a question. Does the tooling take into account JavaScript, HTML, CSS and extensions? And if it does, what kind of metrics does it close up to?
Currently the only thing we do is measure the amount of lines of code. But since we have other analyses that can do JavaScript and can do SQL, it will be possible to also analyze that within this analysis. That would be possible. And we're going to do that definitely for SQL, because there's a number of best practices that say, well, your SQL has to be like this or that. So in that case, it would be nice if we know what to do with it. But maybe it shouldn't interfere with the writing at all. Yeah.
Any more questions? See one hand over there.
When you first decided to start working with OutSystems, did you ever consider to look at the generated .NET or Java code instead of looking at the actual OutSystems produced code?
Never.
Was there a reason behind this?
Yes, because generated code is not code that has to be maintained normally. And if companies say, well, how good is the generated code because we'd like to maintain it, maybe get rid of OutSystems and maintain it by hand, I'd say don't do it. It's a bad idea, always.
Okay, thank you.
Let me see, I got a couple of other slides. So I'm not going to go into everything, but as I said, we have like 4 ways that you can look at the code. So I'm starting out with the rating. But there's also, let's say, 3 categories of people that might have different interests to look at the code. And there's one thing that I'd like to stress here. So rating, especially for developers, everybody really, that's an input for retrospective. It should tell people this is what comes out of it. Have a look, have a conversation, discuss what we can do to make code better. It's not a judgment. So that's the main thing here. And that's basically what the pitfalls are. It's one slide. Actually, maybe you can sum it up in one even. So there's a big pitfall here, and it depends on the kind of company you work for. But if management uses ratings or findings to judge your work, then there's something wrong. You know, they might use it to say, well, this project has been started, you know, a month ago. OutSystems is new to us. If you see things that you think, well, that's not quite how we envisioned it, then you can have a talk with the team, see what's going on here. But that's it. No judgment. Because if you do that, this is what developers will do. They will make the machine happy, as we call it. You know, they start, working on each and every issue that they find without thinking about that software is actually it's instructions for the machine, but it's also a means of communication with yourself in the future and your colleagues. Yeah, and that's what happens. You fight the symptoms instead of structural issues. Okay? So those are the pitfalls. And I have another takeaway. Still have time, I think. Yeah, so we all know what happens. We read it in the newspapers. Conventional application development fails. And I think they say it's 30% of the cases, but not everything hits the newspapers. Maybe it's even 50%. And there's a reason for it. Is it 70 that fails? Okay, great. Even more. Anyone higher? Yeah. 80? Yeah. Okay. So what happens, and this, especially also in the agile age, if you just focus on features, if you have your team, this is, if you have custom-made development or let's say conventional language, the focus on features that agile brings with it makes that people start really fast developing and make stakeholders happy. But after a while, you lose the structure in your software. So this is what happens if a project fails. So this is the effort that goes into it. It increases ever more without ever hitting a production ready status. And if you focus on structure and quality, you see that in the beginning, for conventional languages, things slow down a bit, but after a while, it becomes faster and faster, and it can end, well, not over here. It will slow down eventually, but at least you get a good product in production ultimately. Now, low-code development is different, obviously. So, especially in the beginning, you can make really good progress. Start building features from the start, and make stakeholders happy. But still, if you stick to best practices, then you become even faster. And I hit production. Well, now I call it requirements met, but hit production status code really fast. And if you don't do it, especially if you have lots and lots of custom code in it, then you will slow down, not maybe as fast as a disastrous project, but you will slow down ultimately. So that's why we think it's very valuable to attend to best practices, but also, if you have very large projects, to measure them automatically, because that's where you find everything, and even maybe a couple of things you would like to find. So, and now here's the formal slide with questions. Any questions left?
Everybody ask his questions?
Thanks for the
One more here.
So you've shown the graph. Do you have the numbers in which you use for the graph?
No. It's, that graph is conceptual. So it's a conceptual way. I mean, the graph showed here.
Yeah.
That's a conceptual graph. That's an let's say mind mapping. But it would be nice if I had some concrete numbers there.
Can you integrate this tool with Jenkins, for example, and use it for multiple customers?
Yes, we're intending to do so, because we've done that for a couple of customers already, but those were C++ and C# projects. And for OutSystems, we're waiting until we have the means of decrypting the code. Now, if you make a plugin and make it part of the deployment pipeline, because that would be nicest. Yeah.
Any idea on the potential timelines? When would that be available?
I hope within a couple of months. This year. Yeah, okay, but it doesn't depend on us, I'm afraid.
Any other questions before we go to beers? Oh, there's somebody that doesn't like beer.
Is there already any model on the pricing and for the tool? For instance, connected to some OutSystems licensing with the several options that exist?
Yeah, there is, and Sergio is the guy to talk to. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jeroen.
Thank you.
Nice presentation.
Thank you very much.
Everybody can just have a quick drink over here. Gino is waiting for pouring out some beers. We'll prepare the next
Developer consultancy company, SAP specialist. I don't know where the sound is.
Relax. I will hug you up.
Only for me.
Okay, our next presentation is about test automation. I've got two of my colleagues, they somewhat volunteered when I pointed them out. So maybe they're a little bit... No? It's good? It's good? It's Sukanta. He's our senior test engineer. He knows a lot about different test toolings. And the other one here, it's Silver. He's one of our newest OutSystems developers. Certified associate, right? Yes. And working hard with us. Well, please come up and start the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the beer. Okay. To introduce myself, my name is Sukanta Naman. I started working with LINKIT this year as a test automation expert. I started my career in 2009 as a test automation engineer. At the beginning of my career, I did a lot of test automation with Python, PHP, with Selenium 1, and then many more with Java, different commercial tools. Today, thank you. Okay. Today we are going to talk about low-code test automation. I'm going to do the presentation part. My colleague Silver, he recently started learning the tools and test automation, so he's going to do the demo part. So you already can see the slide. We already mentioned why, what, and how we do, and our customer stories. And the last part is the demo part. So at the very beginning, I just wanted to say something about test automation. In your words, if I say what is test automation, it's a piece of software to validate another piece of software. You can do it by using open source tool, or maybe by using different commercial test tools. To start with, why enterprises invest in test automation? What is the main goal? Why each and every project manager want to do test automation for their project? First, to lower the cost. Second, increase the test efficiency. And third, increase the test coverage to reduce the risk. So that's what each and every project owner, every organization wants to invest for the test automation. So next, but we have different tools in the market. There are a lot of open source tools, there are a lot of commercial tools. But most of the tools are heavy, complicated, and code-based. On top of that, if you are using an open source tool or maybe code-based tool, commercial tool, you need to design a framework. So in the screenshot, I just added a few screenshots how it looks like. If you do a test automation or if you design a framework with the open source tool, how it looks like. But that's a big challenge nowadays, because most of our clients, they say we want to introduce test automation for our project. But when we say, okay, we have a good solution with open source tool, they said, no, we don't have anyone to do coding. We want something who can do like OutSystems, drag and drop, low code. So if you move forward, there is a skill gap, another problem. The business people and the functional tester, they know their application, they know their domain very well. But if you introduce a new test automation engineer, he's going to design a good framework, he's going to do a lot of scripting, and then if we ask the business people, can you please review the test automated scenario? They say, no, I don't know anything about the testing, I don't want to keep my hands on that. So in the both sides, from the testing side, from the business people, from the functional guy, nobody wants to look, nobody wants to review what they delivered, what they did. There are big, nice framework developed in the open source tool. So at the end of the day, nobody knows what they did, what they built. And after some time, maybe 1 or 2 months, oh, there are so many nice things, but nobody knows what is this, and then everybody throws it out. So there's a big skill gap. When we go to our clients, each and every client said, oh, we want to implement test automation, but we have some constraint, like coding is very hard for me. We don't want to introduce something for that, If you need to do coding, then we don't want to do any automation on those kind of fields. So we need something which is very easy. They said coding is hard for me, change management is quite impossible. An over-engineered framework, keep people lives. That's a good thing. Everybody, I think everyone has a good knowledge of that. You hire someone to design a good framework using Java or maybe Cucumber or maybe BDD, whatever it is. There are different test automation frameworks available in the market. So you can design a good framework, but end of the day, if the guy who designed the framework he left the company, then it's again a challenge to train someone to skill up on that level. So that's a big challenge. And yeah, at the end, people says, oh, okay, we'll outsource it to somewhere like, in Israel or maybe China or maybe in India. People will do that. But then you lose the quality. You lose the control. You never know what they are doing. And you end of the day say, okay, there is a big nice Excel report, 100 test case, 50 pass, 50 fail. Why? Nobody knows. So, when I joined LINKIT, Remco says, I want something like our system I can do my scenarios, drag and drop, connect the properties. So, and then we started, I started surveying the market, what is a good tool available. We can do all kind of automation. We can, it should be easy to learn. It should be easy to train, and everybody can contribute that ideas and thoughts to do automation. And we found something which is LeapWork. It's a low-code platform. The shortest learning curve, I said. It took very less time to learn. There is nothing, it's very complicated. You should be, it doesn't take long time. That's what I wanted to say. Never type a single line of code. You don't need to type any code. Development of script, easy, understandable, and user-friendly manner like the design flow. Minimum effort and maximum results. If I dive into it, LeapWork is a platform for the technical as well as for the non-technical user to create, maintain, and own their automation. The good thing is you get 24/7 support. Whenever if you have any technical challenges, you can contact the support guys. They will help with any aspect. Collaborate in one platform. This is again a good thing. For example, we saw there are large different companies. They build their automation framework in a big scale with maybe Java, with Cucumber, or maybe in a pipeline CI/CD Jenkins. But then there are a lot of tools integrated in a single platform. You don't have people those who knows all those tools together to maintain the pipeline, to maintain the test cases, to execute, to build a report, to do all those stuffs. So this tool, it provides everything together. You don't need to go for the CI/CD tool. If you want, you can do. They have plugins for the Jenkins, they have plugins for the Bamboo, all those tools. So it comes with a one platform, one controller, one multiple studio, and 2 agents for the running. So you can implement within your organization, and you can do entire automation within the organization. You don't need to go, in outside world. And build your test case visually. Everything is visual. There is nothing like hidden, no coding. If you want, you can put your hands on coding also. They also provide those facilities. That's how the test scenario looks like. At the rightmost corner, I have added my test case. It's like a drawing in the board. First, it starts with the start block, and then according to the test case, you put an open application. In the example I mentioned SAP. So open your SAP, and according to the test case, click on orders. For each and every action, it provides a building block. Each block contains whatever required action. And that's how the design flow. The green connector follows the path, execution path, and there are different properties. So in the demo, we are going to dive into more properties, how you can connect with the different thing. So you can see here, no coding is required. The entire script is built in a visual way. Any question? As of now, everything's clear?
How do you find the objects?
Let's go. That's a good question. Okay. So, LeapWorks, it's one platform. You can do web automation. The good thing, the web automation engine is built on the Selenium. So I think everybody knows what is Selenium. It's the most powerful tool in the test automation industry. So they acquire the Selenium and then put it as a wrapper, and they build the web automation engine based on the Selenium. On top of that, they have desktop automation feature, image recognition, and SAP. If I type more, so on top of regular web application, it supports OutSystems, Salesforce, iOS and Android application. I just want to mention one thing. At this moment, Leapfrog doesn't support testing of native app, but it's in plan. In few years, maybe next year, they are going to, develop a plugin for testing of iOS and Android application. After that, it supports Microsoft, all desktop applications, IBM's Oracle Forms for the Citrix and for SAP. These are some good features for the tool. Build reusable components. It's like our system weblogs. You can build one component and you can use it for the multiple purpose. Drive test case with external data. So in test automation, most of the time we struggle with data. You can use here, this tool supports connection with the XLS file, with Oracle database, with SQL database. So you can fetch the data, we can read-write the data according to the user permission to the database as well as in the Excel file. The next thing, it gives a good report after the execution. So you can see a nice report. You can export the report in XLS file or maybe a PDF file or maybe an HTML file. And the most important and the good, nice feature of this tool is customized automation strategies. This is object recognition feature. This feature differentiates this tool from the other commercial tool. In other commercial tool, they provide a record and playback feature. We are talking about low-code test automation tool. But in the open source tool, you can do everything. But we are not talking about open source tool. So here in this tool, it provides a good feature. It provides multiple options to choose objects, as well as you can put your own strategies like regular expression pattern, or maybe the best approach, ID property, name property, we are going to show in the demo. And supports continuous delivery. You can integrate this tool with Jenkins, Bamboo, or maybe Hudson to support your entire pipeline. And run on premises and in the cloud. So it supports execution in the cloud also. You can buy a source lab or maybe some other cloud platform license, and then you can set up your environment there and execute your application over there in the cloud. Scheduling is also possible. It's a common feature each and every tool provides. You can schedule your test suite maybe for the entire week, middle of the night. It will automatically start execution, and in the morning you see a nice report. Automate across application. This is also a nice feature. You can combine two platforms. Maybe you create your orders in SAP, you want to verify your orders in web application, so you can combine two applications, two platforms. So, we found that this tool is best fit for our systems. Why? This is one of the example, and I'll show maybe one or more example. And that's how I'm going to answer your question. That's how we do object recognition. In OutSystems, for example, I took an example of login page. If you see the username and if you see the DOM structure, there's a web platform generated name property at the beginning. At the end, some unique property which is provided by the developer. But most of the time, what happens, if you do some changes in the web page, if you add one extra control, then these random generated numbers, the name is going to change. So this is the most challenging part in the OutSystem application, and most of the tool, all of the commercial tool fails here, I can say, by guarantee. So this tool provides you multiple feature and the regular expression pattern. You can mention part of this ID and say contains. It's a one-time activity, and then it's going to work forever. It's never going to fail. because until and unless developer is not going to change the name of the in the studio, and it's multiple possibilities of UI object identification, regular expression method like starts with, ends with, there are many more. So this is the unique feature that makes the tool different than the other tool in the market, commercial tool. This is low code. You don't need to write any code. Just the way I showed in the previous slide, you can build your scenario, just drag and drop, connecting features one after another. And this is another example. For example, if you want to read a table, you have to iterate one by one each and every rows and do something, maybe verify or maybe something like that. So this tool provides a feature in the rightmost corner. I added one screenshot. Depend on the table, it identifies the entire table, how many tiers in the page. So number of tiers it shows in the rightmost corner arrow. So we can add a building block. Depend on the building block, it can iterate one after another each and every rows. So this is again a challenging feature for other tools. So this tool make it very easy. So these are the common features in test automation. Day by day, every day we face a challenge with other tools. But if you talk about open source tool, then it's possible. We can do some tricks. We can do some Java code and put a loop. We can do everything. But in the low code platform, it's quite difficult for other tools, I found, according to my experience. And for DevOps people, because in the LeapWalk, it stores everything in the controller as a REST API. So it can communicate with any other DevOps tools. You can communicate, it has a plugin, you can connect with HPQC, you can connect with Jira or many other tools. So that's again a good feature. And on top of that, I already spoke about the engine is made based on the Selenium, so it's fast and efficient. And you can work with inactive windows. You don't need to keep open your windows and leave it for the execution. So if you want to execute in the same machine, and if you want to do same time multiple tasks, just minimize the window and then in the background the test automation will tool will execute the whole scenario. Customized automation strategies, so that I already spoke about. These are the nice feature that's makes this tool differentiate than the other tool in the market. And some more feature like you can do cross-browser testing. You can write C#, JavaScript code, or maybe shell script. It's possible to connect with Oracle and SQL database. This is the platform architecture. By default, it comes with one controller, 2 agents. It may be virtual machine. In the picture I mentioned virtual machine, or it may be physical machine. And unlimited studio. Studio can be used by each and individual test automation engineer. Whatever you do, it can be stored in the controller. And if you want to start execution in the agents can be installed on different virtual machine, or maybe in the same machine with studio. And these are the customer base of LeapWalk. So most of them are using already LeapWalk. Some of them are in discussion for the LeapWalk. These are some upcoming features, because this tool is very young in the market. Last year they think in 2017, in the beginning of 2017, they launched the tool. So according to the customer request, they are trying to build the feature industry wants. So these are the feature is going to be added in the future. And this is an open platform for reviewing all test automation tools. Anybody can go there and then put a reviews. So on this platform, this tool gets 4.5-star review. Yeah. So finally, I'm going to hand over it to my colleagues. He's going to show a little demo.
Thank you, Sukanta, for showing the fit between LeapWalk and OutSystems. So my name is Silver Gashai. I started what Remco mentioned last April as a junior assistant developer. So my goal today is to show how easy it can be, or how you can, without testing knowledge, how you can work with LibWork. So I'm going to show you first a demo. We pre-generated some test case scenarios about application to what we released earlier. It's a LINKIT loyalty app. It's for employees to involve more in the company, so we can earn money, or we can earn points and spend points, or exchanges for vouchers. So take a sip. It's maybe better. I hope you can see it, if it's clear. So first of all, this is the application LibWork. What we got here, we got dashboards. We can configure it of your needs, of course. We got projects. So as you can see, I created for today a Meetup demo project with 2 test case scenarios. One is for earning points. So if you earn points for installing the loyalty app, you are not supposed to earn again those points. So we're going to validate the error, what you're going to see when you try to apply again for the points. And we got a test case scenario for spending points. So you're not supposed to spend points if you don't have any points, of course. So if you go here, we got environments. We are running those test case scenarios on a local host. You of course can also use your own server. We can schedule it. We got reporting. So first of all, I'm just going to show you how it works when you run some test case scenario, and after it I'm going to create my own test case scenario for logging in. So first of all, if you press start, or run now, sorry, it will run automatically those 2 test case scenarios. So the first one is for trying to apply again for the 5 points. So now it's logging in with my login credentials. So I already spent those points, so now it's installing. Okay, now it's showing, it's going too fast, but I can show it later how it works. So this is my second test case scenario. It's for spending the points. So I got 0 points, and I'm not supposed to spend points. Yes, not. So now we're going to check what it says reporting, if the test case scenario says passed or have they failed.
Can everybody in the back see what's happening on the screen, or a little bit? If you have difficulty, try to walk a little bit up front, because I don't think it can be bigger. I'm not sure. I don't think so. How's that?
So the results of course are they passed. So if we collapse this, then you can see that both test case scenarios are passed. If you open it, first of all it will show the canvas with the flow we generated for the test case scenario. And downstairs we got a log, and every time the test case scenario is running, it will record automatically what happened, and it shows the time. So if you press, you can see what action has been made, and if you go downstairs, it says that the case has been passed. So now we shall create a test case scenario to see how easy it can be without testing knowledge to create a test case scenario. So first of all, I will create here a new case. For this we're going to okay. So for now we're going to okay. Okay, for this case we're going to use a Lyft International website with I'm going to show you. It's because due to time we are not, we can do something complicated. So our goal is to see an error message, so we are not allowed to log in with a wrong password. So first of all, new case, Lyft International login. Select case type, it's a web application of course. So as you see, the canvas has been opened. It's every time starts with a start box. We see an action button. If we collapse it, it will say what we are going to do. No action, close all windows or minimize all windows. We will select first of all minimize all windows. Here we got a green dot. If you press it and we drag and drop it, you can go with the flow. First of all, we want to open the website. So as you can see, we see here a lot of elements for building blocks. So if you check. So first step will be start the web browser. We can select different kind of web browsers: Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Internet Explorer. So we will first go to the login page. And if we expand, you can edit more settings like the device type, and it will automatically generate the device it will show you in the browser. But we'll use just desktop. So let me collapse it. So after starting the web browser, you want to select the input widget. So we need to get first the web element. So again, we press the green button, green icon, or green dot, release it, and we search for click web element. So now starts the interesting part. We see here now a box. It's saying select web element to click. So if we press it and continue. Okay. So it will automatically open a new browser with the login page. And now the capture mode, as you can see, is on. So it's a kind of a scraper. You can hover it at any kind of elements. So we want, first of all, to enter our username. So if you press username, it will automatically select the box. But what Sukant already told, the nice fit of Fleetwork with OutSystems is that you can change the web element. Because as you know, if you work in OutSystems, it will automatically generate your ID. And our main goal is just to, every time you deploy a new version of your screen, or if you change anything, then you want that the test case scenario every time will pass. So as you can see, we got here our username. We gave it a name, username input. But if we check it in the code, then you see, I don't know if people can see it. It passes automatically this ID. It's web patterns with the block coupled up, and at the end it shows my input name that I've given into OutSystems. So what we do, so here it opens automatically, it shows you a kind of recommended elements for selecting the web element. So if you go here, we see that it has given automatically the name of OutSystems that has been generated by OutSystems. So what we're going to do is to avoid errors in the future, if we change something in the login page in the screen, we're going to change the ID to contains. So, and if we delete the automatically generated ID of OutSystems to username input, then you know that in the future everything will pass. So we save this. So after selecting the web element, we want to type something. We want to type our username. I will use my email. Afterwards, we want again to select the password element. Click web element, select password. Select automatically. Again, type. So now we're going to type a wrong password. Don't worry, it shows here something, but we can change the type to password, so it will show you password format. So now we want to log in. So we need again to select the web element. Login.
Could you run it already without pressing the login button?
Sorry?
Could you run already the test without pressing the login button to see if, if it runs okay?
Are you in a hurry? Test. Just there. But nothing will happen. It will just doing the steps. And of course it will pass. But let me continue. Login. And after pressing the login, we want to compare the error. So what needs to happen when we press login with the wrong password? First, for get web text. So let me put first the capture mode off, so we can play. Okay, now it's showing the invalid username or password, so we're gonna put it again on to select the element where the text has been found. Expand it, and now we're gonna compare. So first of all, the text found, we drag it to the value A. Yes, here we go. And we're going to compare it with value B. So the founded text needs to compare with our own entry value. Comparison type, it's not a value, but it's text. So, and the last step is, okay, what happened if it's correct? Of course, it's pass. Expand it. Paste. Our wrong password. And if it shows something else, it will fail. So, if we press play, yes, invalid username or password. So now we're going to check the log, what's saying, and it says passed, you can't log it with your wrong password. So that easy it can be. Are there any questions?
lot of questions will arise probably.
Yes, so the I have two questions. First question is, can you reuse these elements? So define it once and use it again?
Yes.
Oh, that wasn't
As
easy.
I already mentioned in the presentation that you can create reusable components. So for the login feature, you can put it in a reusable components, for example. Say for example, these many blocks you want to put as a reusable component. So now this is one building block. And so now it's this is one building block. So you can use this building block for any other scenarios.
In OutSystems we call this extract to action.
Yeah.
Not sure if you know it.
Yes.
And that was the second question.
Again.
Well, the second one was, well, it looks very much like UI path, for example, also an RPA platform.
Yeah.
Have you also looked into RPA? And,
yes, so using this also you can do RPA. This also supports RPA, but UiPath is more or less mostly concentrated on the RPA part for robotic process. This provides both robotic process as well as the functional and regression automation, both. You answered the question? Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks.
And one question here for Marco.
Yep.
Well, first of all, with the presentation, my question is, because I noticed that you renamed the elements in OutSystems.
Okay.
And also this is maybe an open question to the audience, is did you also thought on methodologies or in terms of changing current applications to rename all the elements or all the needed elements? What is that impact of change and how will it cope with the costs associated to the project when we want to apply this technology?
Yeah, so again it depends on the developers. If best practice is to put something at least for each and every control. So I think everybody should follow the standard guidelines. So yeah, if you don't provide, then it's struggle for each and every automation tool. So from tester side, it's our request to follow the best development guideline and at least put some unique ID elements for each and every control.
But there is, I think, with LeapWork, a workaround that you can check the class name or other functionality, or if it's
everything,
the element name, so it's a div within a div within a div within something else.
So it provides you multiple choice. I mean, you can select your control with span name, div name, or class name. So with a combination of different HTML element. So yeah, if you don't change, still it works.
Hi. It's very nice to see a tool that actually is able to work with OutSystems.
Yep.
I've looked at RanoX 3 years ago. It was really struggling.
Yeah.
So more like an honest question. What are the items that LeapWork currently is struggling with if you look at OutSystems automated testing?
Yeah. Honestly speaking, at this moment they are supporting everything within the organization. The architecture I show. But if you want to put everything on GitHub, so because they are generating everything, each and every test scenarios, test cases, projects, everything as a REST API. So if you want to put it everything on the GitHub and then multiple users are working, they are extracting those scenarios. So the locking and version management, they are struggling with those things. So I already show in one slide that they are working for the version management control. So on that part, they're improving.
And if you look at the UI of OutSystems, all items are easily automated tested?
Yeah. As of now, whatever LINKIT has as an internal application, we tried with all applications. So it was success. And the good thing I should mention, because we already did a project for Ahold also with the OutSystem application. There's a famous application Wink. So I think that application wins a award also. So for that application, it was successful.
And I think that some of those items that you show that are being developed, I think the top 5 is released yesterday or something.
So,
The latest
yeah.
version. So
Latest version was
I didn't
released,
want
so
to touch it because of your
demo.
presentation, but
Yeah.
I believe that those
Features are
the
already.
top 5 is already solved.
Yeah.
So, any more questions?
Two questions. One, can I add some randomness to the tests, like given a list of users, select one? and
Yes,
log in?
yes, that's a good question. For example, I want to show you. If you go to scheduling, so if I edit my schedule, there is a variable. You can add random variables there. You can add multiple users, or maybe you can add an Excel file and provide everything in the Excel file, and runtime you can read those from the Excel file.
That's also valid for clicking a link from a
Yeah.
given
So
list.
that's the why I said the parameters. For the each and every different schedule, you can put some random values, parameters,
And the
username.
tool handles the view state automatically. You
Yeah.
don't have to do anything.
No.
Second one was about, I've seen that you had 2 agents. Can you
Yeah.
add some more agents to add some load into the application
Yeah.
and use it as well for, let's say, load testing? Because sometimes the application doesn't behave properly under load,
Yeah.
stress, and
Yeah.
having the ability to start multiple agents.
Yeah. So for load testing, this tool is not the load for load testing. This is only for functional testing, functional and regression testing. For load testing, there are something else like load runner or JMeter. But yeah, I don't know what is the exact question you wanted to know, what answer you were expecting. So we can add multiple agents. So by default, the package comes with 2 agents. If needed, you have to buy extra license for the other agents. So everything you have to configure here in the configuration. So at this moment, I have created one environments because my agents is installed on this laptop. So I provided localhost and the same particular port number. So if you are installing another port, another agents, multiple agents, maybe in different machine, you have to provide the machine name and the port here. So that's how you can connect multiple agents with one controller. Am I answer your question? Okay.
I saw one more hand. You answered, and I saw another.
I'm curious, how about metrics on test coverage and those kind of items needed for reporting and showing?
Yeah. So in the reporting format, it provides 4 dashboard. So maybe this can be usable. If not, then you can extract, you can import entire report in 3 format: HTML, Excel and PDF. So from the Excel format, you can create your own dashboard, whatever. So at this moment, it supports only 4 type of widgets. These 4 types. So if user needs, we can send a request to LeapWork. Hey, our clients are asking for more dashboards. So in future, it's possible. Because now we are partner of LeapWork, so we are doing collaborating with them, training and supporting, implementing tool, everything. So whatever request, whatever needed for the client, so we can request them and they will provide it. Maybe it will take some time, 2 months, 3 months, and then it will be definitely in.
Thank you.
Can I answer your question? Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if there are more questions. There's one more here. I think it's that guy will be the last question then.
Thank you. I was seeing the presentation, and I think the testing you guys are doing is actually pretty great. All UI based, the one.
Yeah.
You also talk about integrations and all that stuff, which
Yeah.
is also great. But I have one question regarding all of this. So, as you already know as well, and everybody in this room, microservices are fake. and we have a lot of web services everywhere, and more automated testing tools are also trying to make sure that can test these things automatically as well.
Yeah.
And make it stubbable, make them predictable, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So my question to you is it actually possible to do this with your tool? And if yes, how easy it actually is and how maintainable it actually is?
So you are talking about microservices, REST API or
REST
something like
API, SOAP, whatever it is, services in general.
Yeah. So you see, I already, when you were questioning, I already added one building block. You see HTTP request. You can put your URL and what kind of method. You can select your method, headers and body, whatever you want to test. So you just play the test case. It's gonna hit the particular URL and the response come back from according to the method. You can extract the value from the method and then you can do your required verification.
And is stubbing also possible to
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Is stubbing of services is actually also possible, yes or no? Because sometimes development requires stub to do some sort of stub to a service because it's not available yet, but as a testing value, let's say, and you have a response, you want to make it a stub until the service is there. Is that possible as well?
To answer your question, at this moment, stubbing they don't support. For that, maybe because you want to do something specifically for the services. So maybe for that tool, I'll suggest for that kind of testing, I'll suggest to go with what do you say? Smart VR tool. It's SOAP UI. So then stubbing and everything is possible. So again, we can if you have a client base, they are asking for stubbing. They want to do execution from here for your REST and other services. We can request them. They will definitely provide because it's not that difficult. Just a layout to put your XML file and then just pass the XML file. So definitely they will provide. It's not that rocket science. Yep.
I'm having the last question right here. So go ahead. I will say it.
Okay.
Well, maybe it's not a question because I first need to ask, do you also know Tosca as testing tool?
Yes, I know Tosca.
And compared with LeapWork, what would be the advantages or disadvantages? Because all the automatic testing, we're already doing that also in Tosca, so with the generated IDs.
Yeah. So the most common difference, most important difference is object identification. Tosca, what it does, it scans each and every page before, when you do the automation. Okay, so maybe in future, you added some new controls or something changes in the page. You have to scan the page once again.
No.
I think so.
No, we have a module made for that also makes that's possible. So we can also work with generated IDs.
Okay, so then you integrate another tool.
No, it's part of the Tosca.
Yeah, I know that from Velory, they build that part and then they have a collaboration with them.
Yeah.
And if you buy both the tools, then you have to pay for 2 license.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's an extra cost.
Okay, but
yeah.
then again, it is possible. So is the question, because I'm curious to
that's
no regards about that. And I know Tosca as license is very expensive, so
yeah,
that
so
would be a great
great
addition to, move to LeapWork.
When we do the evaluation, I also, because I know Tosca how it works, so I also check some features of Tosca and how it works and how clients are struggling with Tosca. They do a very good marketing, I know. But anyways, so yeah, I don't know. My feeling, and I explain everything to Remco because he has a good knowledge of OutSystems application, and I show each and every feature. He said, yeah, if I compare with Tosca, this tool I will select. So yeah,
do you know
I'll go with the boss.
Just to finish the evening, I have I think some small addition to this presentation. We are talking about LeapWork. We are a partner of LeapWork. Everybody is allowed to visit the LeapWork network website and contact LeapWork. We would be happy if you mention our name. We are a partner in the Netherlands, so if you decide to go with LeapWork, we will be contacted either way. So, because it doesn't matter too much, but then at least LeapWork knows that you come through us. So that was one little thing, and I would like to have a big applause for Sukanta and Silver.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, Remco. Thank you, Silver.
And I would like to make two other people in this audience a little bit happy. There are two test companies that joined today. One is Specialisterre. They're a really good testing company, doing great jobs. We are working also together with them. So if you are looking into outsourcing your testing, they're the company to contact. And show a hand over there. Yeah, and we have Risk IT in the front. I just met him. He's a cool guy.
Oh, thank you.
And, he is also a test company. Maybe in two little sentences you can explain your organization.
Yeah, we are 20 people training a lot of other people also in testing and also in tooling and other stuff. So actually we are trying to support OutSystems companies also. So actually this was pretty new to us, and I think we can do a nice job here.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you very much.
So I'm not sure if I missed another testing company that was joining us here, but I don't think so. So thank you everybody. Our next meetup will be next month, but instead of the last Tuesday, it will be on the 16th out of my head. And that one will take a deeper look into OutSystems P11. As I have heard, OutSystems Netherlands is sending at least one solution architect, I think the only one that's not here today, to present everything about P11. It's after the next step, so there will be no things that will be hidden from us. So I think it will be a nice presentation. No pressure. Thank you all, and have some more drinks. On the way out, we have some cool Neo OutSystems Smarties, or M&Ms, I'm not sure how you call them. We got it from OutSystems, they sent it from Portugal. We're the first one that are allowed to taste it. All the others can taste it at OTC in Portugal.